Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Vampire Counts led by Vlad von Karstein. And I'm going to be facing off against the Warriors of Chaos. So this is actually probably, in my opinion, one of the coolest maps for this matchup because you just have these two kind of, evil cataclysmic forces just marching up and meeting on this hillside here. So very, very cool map, thematically speaking. So as far as my army composition goes, again, more often than not, Chaos is going to bring a very armored, army, no pun intended. And, again, having Graveguard with great weapons, these guys will, stand toe-to-toe, relatively speaking, especially when supported by the Mortis engine. So I have a front line of Graveguard across the board with great weapons, and also supported in the center by the Sternsmen. So even though, the Sternsmen aren't, designed to fight against armor, they just have such good stats across the board with 47 melee defense that it's just too hard to pass up on them. On top of that, they have their own natural regeneration, and, armored and shielded is nice, but obviously not pertinent here, but they're just such a good unit, and I feel like they're always worth bringing. And, if your opponent does decide to do a Marauder army, these guys are going to really, really shine. On top of that, I have two Cryptors here, supported by this Mortis engine, and Big Papa Vlad von Karstein, he's ready to party. So as far as him, I just have the Invocation of Nehek and the Raised Dead. So Raised Dead is very, very good now. It has like 7, 8, 9 charges, and you can spam it like nothing else. So for example, if you're fighting in a flank, you're losing, you withdraw all those troops from the flank, you summon Raised Dead right in their place, and the enemy flank will be trapped while your troops get away. There's just so many good utilities. You can summon it on top of missile units, and it'll generate a lot of good value, just an all-around awesome ability now. In the back, I do have some Blood Knights supported by this White King here. So these guys, just in case you decided to bring some Chaos Knights, or, these guys are obviously going to do well against Giants and all sorts of things like that. So big fan of the Blood Knights here. So my opponent actually, let's get into his army composition now. He actually brought Marauder Horsemasters. I was gonna say Marauder Master Horsemen, but Marauder Horsemasters, and they're just laying into this Mortis engine. So I was really not expecting this. I didn't bring bats, I didn't bring any hounds or anything that can catch these guys. So these guys are just getting free range, and you can see they got a single full volley right there on my Mortis engine, and we're able to do substantial damage. So very well played to my opponent in terms of his decision making here. As far as his main army goes, again, caught me off guard. He has Chaos Marauders in his entire front line. The one issue with that is he's gonna have serious trouble piercing the armor of my Graveguard with his standard infantry. He does have Aspiring Champions in the secondary line, and he does have 2 Giants. So these Chaos Giants, they have a lot of weight on their shoulders. They're going to have to be doing all of the armor piercing work. On top of that, he does have 2 Chaos Warriors with Halberds in the back. So it's very hard for my Cav to find a place because he doesn't really have anything I can catch with these Blood Knights. And on that same note, if I try and sneak around and get to the Giants or Kolek or any of those troops like that, he's going to have those Halberds waiting for me. So very, very intense strategy here. And again, Kolek Sun Eater, he does have the Lord of the Storm, of course. And that's about it. So let's get right into the action. And this one's going to get started pretty quickly here. Thankfully, I do have the Cryptors. The Cryptors are going to be very good at focusing down large, heavy units. And even though, Chaos Giants aren't armored, Cryptors still hit for 70 weapon strength. They'll poison them and will do very well at mitigating a lot of their, damage, essentially. So as Master and Marauder Horsemen are continuing to skirmish around, you can see they did about 40 HP damage on this Mortis engine, so pretty bad for me. And this is the first second I saw his army. It was like I only had 1 second to react. So you can see my Graveguard are going to charge in there, and Kolek and everyone are just going balls deep on my Sternsmen here. But thankfully I was able to get Vlad von Karstein as well as these Cryptors on Kolek. Look at the burst he's taking. It's very, very tough. And thankfully, it appears he's been having a little bit of trouble getting on my Mortis engine, so I actually am just posturing it right in the middle of this battle and using a big Invocation of Nehek. So if he comes, from this angle to try and get it, I can simply run it over this way, and vice versa. I can just kind of, dance back and forth. So my Blood Knights, I was trying to circle around and find a spot, but my opponent, very well played. He's just forming a nice battle line with these Chaos Warriors with Halberds, and these guys would just make short work of these Blood Knights, and I do not want that trade. So you can see, unfortunately, I'm having to take a long way around because he does have the superior angle here, so he's able to just head me off. I did summon some zombies in the back line. This is going to make it harder for Kolek to escape. You can see it's occupying a lot of his troops here, and, again, they do cause fear. So against Marauders, they're actually going to help rout them off pretty quickly, because not only will it cause the generic fear, but also on that same note, it will, trigger their rear attack. That's going to be a pretty big hit to my opponent's morale. You can see even Kolek shaking. He's being hit by the Mortis engine, all these Cryptors, and all that sort of fun business. But again, I'm not able to get around to these Chaos Warriors. They're just continuing to chase me down and pressure me, and I can't seem to find a sweet spot for these Blood Knights. So at the same time, that's a ton of resources wasted on my part that, essentially isn't being efficient. Over here, my opponent did collapse my flank, though. These Graveguard here did get killed off. He has a pretty healthy group of Chaos Marauders, some Aspiring Champs, and a full health Giant. Over here, things are going a lot better for me, though. Kolek and my main blob here, especially because of the Cryptors, are doing very, very well. You can see the zombie summon in the back line just absolutely crumbled him. But he gets a nice Lord of the Storm there and does a little bit of damage to the Sternsmen, but nothing that Invocation of Nehek won't help with. Over here, he's also doing pretty well, so he's winning on both of the flanks, essentially. You can see I actually summoned some zombies down here, which, got on these Marauder Horsemasters and are actually getting some kills, believe it or not. They were able to rack up 2 or 3 kills, which is pretty rare for zombies. Usually they don't get any kills. And some of these Blood Knights who were kind of postured up in the hill were able to then come down and catch up with these Master Marauder Horsemen who were kind of wrapped up with these zombies here. So very, very good situation for me. So right now I'm able to get all my forces since his center flank did collapse. You can see Kolek had to run. Also the Master of Agalman, quite good against Kolek. But, I'm able to collapse on this flank that I had originally lost. And I'm able to just send all of the Crypt Horrors to take on this Crypt Giant. Not this Crypt Giant. This Chaos Giant. And they're doing very well. I mean, granted, the poison, his stats are so high, the poison isn't going to be big, but every little thing counts. And you can see that Giant actually just pimp slapped that Crypt Horror there. So he's doing pretty good, but he's going to start getting worn down once this Mortis Engine and Big Papa Vlad get back as well. Over here, my opponent's doing well. You can see the Graveguard here do have a weak binding, though. And the Chaos Warriors with Halberds, though they're not traditionally designed for, infantry to infantry, they still do have armor piercing, 34 strength, which is only slightly less than the weapon, the great weapons here. And other than that, their stats are quite a bit higher. They have higher melee attack, higher melee defense. So what I ended up doing, actually, and this is what I explained to you guys earlier, is you just do a tactical withdrawal, you pull your Graveguard out, and then you summon zombies in their place. And all of these units, their AI, if they were like pathed over here, they're going to get stuck on these zombies. And you can see this Giant is just wasting so much time. Every swing this Giant takes in these guys is going to be great for me. And you can see even Kolek and some of these Marauders are going to get caught up. And these Chaos Warriors even got caught up for a second as well. So I'm a big fan of the raised dead ability. It seems to be quite strong. And right now I'm just focusing on his Giant and some of his other troops in here. You can see the Crypt Horrors are nicely saturated with the Graveguard, and they're doing a really good job wearing down these Aspiring Chains as well. So other than that, let's go ahead and take an overhead view and see what my opponent has left. So he has these Chaos Warriors, which he'll most likely send in here shortly. But, again, with the Vampire counts, you can start spread out. But late game, I would always suggest, especially if you're playing with the Mortis Engine, Invocation of Nehek, you're going to get the most value, most bang for your buck by pulling in all of your troops here. And just kind of wrapping them up, getting the Invocation of Nehek heals, getting the Mortis Engine heals. And that also forces your opponent into a Death Star situation, which they're essentially going to lose if you have a Mortis Engine that's online for the entire game. I'm a big fan of that particular strategy. You can see Vlad, his binding is strong. He's in great health. I mean, he's just an absolute trooper, though he is getting knocked around a little bit by, I don't know if that was his own Crypt Horror that knocked him over, but my opponent still does have 2 Giants here. I think he has 1 over here, but unfortunately this Giant was caught by some of these Blood Knights, and Vlad was also able to use the Master of Beguilement. So his melee attack is 24, which isn't awful considering how, minus 46, but still, these Blood Knights against the low armor with their anti-large and their heavy hitting weapon strength are going to be able to cut this guy to pieces. And his morale is quickly going to drop very, very low. And he does send Kolek over to try and help, but this is a very dangerous situation because these Crypt Horrors are right here. They can simply dart over here. So the Blood Knights are on him, and you can see all of the Crypt Horrors and all of these troops right now having essentially won this battle. I mean, all that's really left is some Chaos Warriors and a pretty beat up Giant. But I can just take all my troops over here, just swarm on Kolek. He's going to get poisoned, and he just gets chunked out by those Blood Knights and those Crypt Horrors. It's a very good situation for me, and at this point you can see a lot of my opponent's troops, having lost Kolek, are routing off. This Giant's probably going to get punished pretty hard by all of them. This is a ton of weapon strength. Crypt Horrors, we have this Mortis Engine, which actually has 120 weapon strength, so it's able to just chunk down that Giant. So pretty good situation for me there. And then, again, just using that same tactic, you retreat with the zombies, you summon the zombies, it ties them up with fodder, and then you're able to re-engage, and really, you don't have to worry about them getting an optimal charge. You have to, and essentially most of their attacks are going to be against the zombies rather than the units that actually matter. So I'm a big fan of that ability now that it can be spammed, even though they do degenerate pretty quickly and run, you can see that kind of purple-red aura on them, essentially means they're crumbling. But, it's really good considering how you can spam it because it gives you a lot of proximity flexibility in regards to where you can summon the troops, and you can do a lot of work with that. So very well played to my opponent. Let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown here. So Blood Knights did pretty good despite the fact that I was essentially outplayed. He definitely outplayed me with those Halberdiers early on. And his build caught me off guard, like really aggressively. I think if these Chaos Marauders had been the armor-piercing variant, it would have been a much, these guys still got 65 kills, but those were probably against zombies. But if he had brought the armor-piercing variants, maybe had gotten the Lore of Fire in there somewhere with the Flaming Sword of Ruin. Let's see, maybe cut 1 Marauder Horseman and bring like a traditional group of Chaos Warriors with great weapons. I think that battle could have gone the other way, but it was a very cool build. I really liked the way he used the Master Marauder Horseman in the beginning. I felt like that was pretty darn strong, so. Well played to my opponent, Captain Calamar. I look forward to seeing you again on Ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Vampire Counts cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.